Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
Hello there, everyone. Matt here with thevirtualinstructor.com, and welcome to Gettin Sketchy Live, the greatest live broadcast in all of YouTube. I'm glad that you're joining us this evening for episode 3 of season 17. Hope everybody's doing fantastic this evening. Ashley's going to be doing the drawing for us, and for those of you who don't know what Getting Sketchy is, it's where either myself or Ashley, we try to create a drawing for you inside of 45 minutes, and you can watch us sweat the whole way, and we try to sprinkle in some instruction along the way as well. It's pretty laid back. That's why we call it Getting Sketchy, and it doesn't hurt that Ashley and I are pretty sketchy as people anyway, so that works out. Ashley, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thank you for asking. I hope you folks are doing well. This will be my second drawing of the season, and we're going to talk a little bit about theme tonight, in addition to what we always talk about, which is materials and composition and birds of prey and whatever else might come up.
Yeah, I'm sure there'll be something crazy that comes up tonight. Last week, it was Michael Jackson and Darth Vader. Anyway, if you are watching this live on YouTube, there is a chat box, or if you're watching this on the Virtual Instructor website, there's a chat box. You can use that. You have to be a subscriber to the channel in order to use the chat box here while we go live. So if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to the channel. If you do have a comment or question that's directed specifically at Ashley or I, we ask that you use the super chat function. That will get your comment predominantly displayed there in the chat box, and we'll do a little cheer for you if you do that. And of course, it does help the channel if you do that as well. So we would appreciate it if you did that. Also, Ashley's going to be working from a photo reference tonight. So if you want to have a copy of that photo reference, you can find it by using the post column or the post tab on the YouTube channel. So to get there, you click on the little icon of my face down underneath this video. That'll take you to the YouTube channel. If you're not already subscribed, subscribe there. And then look for the post tab, and clicking on that post tab will bring up the most recent post, which has a link back to this video and the photo reference. Now, if you're watching the Gettin Sketchy episode tonight on the website, all you have to do is click on the resources tab underneath this video, and you'll find it there. I think I put it up there. I'm thinking now that I didn't put the photo reference there. We'll see. Anyway, it'll be up after this video is published if it's not already. Anyway, that's how you access the photo reference, and Ashley will be talking about his materials and things in just a minute before we get into this one. But first, you are here because you like drawing and painting. And if you want to take your drawing and painting skills to the next level, then you've got to check out what we've got over at thevirtualinstructor.com. The website is getting more and more awesomer every day. I'm adding new features, adding new courses. We have courses and classes on pretty much every subject matter and medium you can imagine. And we do weekly critiques as part of the Members Minute, where members submit artwork and I critique it. And we also do 2 live streams a week exclusively for members. We have a live stream on Monday, and then we have a live stream on Wednesday evenings after Getting Sketchy, where we complete more finished drawings and paintings that are done in a sequential order. There is so much to explore over there. Ebooks, there's even a lesson plan curriculum, the entire year-long curriculum for visual arts teachers that includes everything you need to teach. It's called the Ultimate Lesson Plan. I just went through and revamped the entire Ultimate Lesson Plan. It is awesome. So if you're a teacher, you got to check it out. If you want to learn more about the program, you can start your free trial for 7 days. That gives you access to everything, all of the courses and classes. Everything we offer is included in your membership, so you don't have to buy additional things. There's a link in the description below this video, or you can scan the QR code on your screen, and that will take you to the website as well. Also, if you want to check out 3 of our course videos and ebooks for free, there's a link in the description below for that as well. That will put you on the mailing list so I can send you emails when we do things like this. Go live on Getting Sketchy, and when I post new artwork to the website or new art lessons to the website as well. So, it's a mouthful.
It is.
But it's a lot of stuff.
You made it. You got to throw it off. Yeah.
And just released the new pathway system today for members, which organizes courses and classes in a sequential order so you can go through. It keeps up with your progress, or you can keep up with your progress as you go through those courses and classes. Makes it really easy to know what course or class you need to take next. So if you're a member, check it out. If you're not a member, why not check it out as well? All right. I think that's all we have to say here, right? Am I forgetting something? I feel like I'm forgetting something. I know I forgot to turn on the lights behind you. Let's turn those on.
Well, Jen mentioned that
There we
I
go.
match the lights that are behind me.
Well,
so-
I just turned on the lights now. So now you contrast more.
Okay. All right. So it's a highly designed stream. So we talk about our clothing before we go live. We come out a week ahead of time. Not really.
Well, you were talking about the fact that we were going to talk about themes tonight.
Right. Oh, yes.
And do you want to wait and talk about that when we switch over, or do you want to talk about it now? Because I have an announcement to make about my theme.
Why don't you go ahead and make your announcement, and then I'll talk about my theme when we switch
Okay,
over.
I'm changing themes. All right. I was going to do people's fears for my theme, and I thought that was a really cool idea. I still think it's a cool
I do
idea.
too.
But the first video of the fears didn't do so great last week. And I think it's because it's of scary stuff and people don't want to draw scary stuff. And I'm looking at all the things I've picked out for the themes, and every one of the drawings is going to be a little bit scary. And, I don't think you guys want to draw and paint those kinds of things.
We don't want to alienate anybody.
Right, I'm changing the theme, even though I would be into it because, being an illustrator and everything, I like that kind of stuff. But I'm going to change my theme. So that was a 1 episode theme last week of drawing the fears, and I'm going to do something completely different for the rest of the season. All right. With that being said, Ashley, do you want to talk about your theme, or are you ready to switch over?
So 2 weeks ago, I drew an orange, and I was trying to think, how can I work that into a theme? I could do fruit. I thought about doing natural textures. I looked at pictures of dry creek beds with cracked mud and bark, and thought, man, texture it's a little rough in 45 minutes. So maybe I shouldn't focus on texture. So I came up with a whole host of ideas, and then ended up coming right back to the orange is orange. And so I'm going to do 5 drawings this season of orange things.
As you can tell, we put a lot of thought into these things, and a lot of planning into the seasons that we go into. There is a lot of background work that goes into
there really is.
producing these episodes that people have no idea. But I went through, I made my entire theme. I did that. And I've got people already in the chat box saying that they liked what I did last week. And it's not surprising, because the people who are saying they like it are kind of the people that are in the same wavelength.
Well, we've got one. I am so glad it changed.
I know. And so many people are going to say, I'm going to opt out. I don't like drawing scary stuff. It's like the course that I made, Pencils on Polyester, which Ashley and I were talking about it. That course is fantastic for a specific type of paper that works great with colored pencils. But I drew a portrait of a spider, and in that course I have little spiders crawling over the artwork and stuff, and I thought that was cool. I was really interested in that, but people don't like that apparently. But anyway, I like it. So anyway, you people out there that are deep thinkers, you'll like it, that kind of stuff. Anyway, enough of this junk. Let's go ahead and switch over. Are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
we'll switch over.
All right, so there is my crayon on the left. It's a photograph that I took, and here's the actual crayon. I brought it with me. It's been in my pocket all day. So I am gonna do a crayon with color pencils, and I'll be using Prismacolor Premier Color pencils. So they're pretty new. This is like a relatively new package design, and I went ahead and put the pencils that I'm going to use in order, and I tried to roll the names around so you could see them. So I may use some pencils that are not in this little grouping, but I've got white, canary yellow, Spanish orange, orange, poppy red. I don't think I'll use the crimson red, but I do have the Tuscan red, which is kind of a dark, dull, brownish red, or a dull, dark red. And also mulberry. We may get some mulberry in there. I have a brown. And then I have the black pencil. So, there are some dark stripes around our crayon, and I might use the black in another color.
Now, the set you're using there is the Prismacolor Draw Orange Crayon set.
That's right.
Limited release. You can see that there's just those pencils in there, except there's one space missing.
No.
It's like the whole set is just made.
I put the rest of the colors underneath. It's a 2-tiered set.
Trickery.
It's like the skin tone set, and it comes with almost all the same colors, just different values. So I kind of made my own let's draw a crayon set out of the set of 24. And you can get larger sets, of course. They are really large sets, but I almost always stick with the sets of 24 because it has a lot of variety. It has a couple of versions of each hue, and then all the other colors in the world you can mix. So I support mixing colors, and if I go over 24, I'll start looking for just the right color instead of mixing my colors.
Well, before you go any further,
Yes?
we do have a super chat already, and it's by Harja, and the comment is, as a teacher and lifelong student, I've tried every art subscription, big and small, online, and the virtual instructor program is the best. Not just a work of art, but a work of heart.
Oh.
Thanks to Matt and Ashley for bringing us art, community, and kindness in modern times. Boy, Hajra, that makes me feel so good. Thank you so much for that comment. And here's your cheer. And hopefully that didn't blow out your speakers.
Yeah, I don't know what it's turned up to right now.
Carry on there, Mr. Ashley.
All right, very good. And yes, Hadra, thanks for the support and the kind words. I also have just a pink rubber eraser. It's like a pink pearl, but who knows what eraser brand this actually is. It's really been through it. And a kneaded eraser that I shaped into a wheel while Matt was talking earlier, but it's just a squishy kneaded eraser. And a fantastic little sharpener. This is one of Matt's sharpeners. I don't think he uses it much because it is sharp.
So it might be a newer one.
I went ahead, it's pretty new. So I went ahead and sharpened some of my pencils before we started. And also have, I found on Matt's drawing table, a white gel pen. So we may use it. There's a couple of tiny little white spots in there that we might pop out if we have time. I know this isn't a lot in the composition, but I'm actually a little worried about the 45-minute time constraint. So I do have Matt's gel pen as well. So I told him before I came over, I've left the house. I left the house with nothing but colored pencils. I didn't bring a pencil or an eraser or anything except colored pencils. So I've been in Matt's drawer a little bit before we went live.
Do you need to sharpen that?
You know what? I think it's going to be okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to use it as it is.
All right.
And the top drawer isn't opening far because of the way the cameras are set up.
Very true. Yeah.
So anything that's more than 2 inches in the drawer is going to have to stay there. All right, I think that's it. So I'll pull up my reference, and my reference, of course, you have one on the screen that actually looks a lot like mine does on my iPad, but I'm using an iPad so that I can zoom in a little bit. That helps me, especially tonight, because in addition to leaving my pencil, I left my reading glasses. So I'm a lot of this picture is blurry, and it may be blurrier still when we get finished with it. Incidentally, the paper is 5 inches by 5 inches, so we're working inside of a square. I hope that's apparent to you. It is a white background and it's on a white surface in the reference image on the left of your screen, but you should still be able to see where it starts and stops because the white paper isn't pure white in the photograph. It's a little bit gray, slightly gray. And so 5 inches by 5 inches, it's a square. You can draw any size that you want to. I don't want to go larger than this with the colored pencils because they're kind of a slow medium. But I still wanted to work larger than life. So you can see how big an actual crayon is on our paper. Pretty tiny. And so we're going to have a fairly decent size crayon to fill in the time that we have. So let's see. So we talked about materials. We talked about our themes. We talked about the paper. I think that's it. I think I'm just stalling.
I think you are.
We're going to have to get started.
Are you ready for the timer?
Yeah, let's go ahead and bring up the timer.
Okay, 45 minutes on the clock starts now.
All right, here we go. So we could start at the very top, the tiny little circle at the top, and then work our way down. But I think what I'm going to start is with a gesture, and that is sort of the tilt of the body of whatever our subject is. It doesn't have to be an actual body. A lot of people talk about gesture drawing when they talk about figure drawing, but in this case, the gesture is going to be a straight line, but it is tilted. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in a slanted line, a diagonal line, and then we'll judge it. We'll look at it and determine if it needs to move more vertically or more vertical or less. There we go. So we've got our gesture in place. Now, you can't see but off screen, I'm going to tilt my pencil at my reference and just kind of capture that angle there. and see how close we are. I think we're pretty close, maybe a little bit more tilted than in the reference, but pretty close. And then the next question is, does it need to move or shift? And that's not really as important because we can draw around it with more or less crayon on one side or the other. So the crayon is essentially a cylinder with a cone on top. And I'm going to focus more on this cylinder and just add the cone. So I'm not really working from top to bottom like I had suggested. There is an ellipse on the top of the cone and on the bottom of the cone, and that's the one we're going to look at, the top of the cylinder or the bottom of the cone. And its edge on the right, I put a mark on my tape where I feel like the halfway point is in my composition, and have estimated that that circle for the cylinder is, it starts on its right side about halfway across, or maybe just a little bit more than halfway across. So this will be our spot. And it looks like it takes up about half of this space, or a tiny bit less than half of the space from the mark that I believe is where its right edge is and the left edge of our paper. So I'm going to give myself another target, something to aim at. And with between these two marks is where we will try to find our tilted ellipse. Now, this drawing, it has some challenges, and one of those is that it is tilted. So even though we're talking about geometric forms, it may be helpful to draw some extra lines in here. Not really sure if I've got the tilt just right, but that will help us compare one side to the other.
All right, Buddy asked, I thought gesture drawing was only about figure sketches only, so it's just about getting started with a few lines?
Right. This is a simple gesture. It could be more complex if we were talking about drawing a person, but all objects, or trees possibly. You might think about a tree, because a tree is not as static as a crayon. And so a tree might have a gesture that has some changes in it from top to bottom, just like a figure would, maybe standing in a contrapposto position. All right, so this could be the top of our cylinder. And we get pretty close to the edges in this drawing. So I'll go ahead and draw in a curve or a half a circle where I think the bottom of the crayon will be. And of course it is going to taper so that it's smaller at the bottom. I'm not sure wide I should go just yet. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. And I'm just going to use a ruler to throw in a couple of lines for us to start making some judgments from. So we'll have to find the tangent for our circle up here. I don't know if I'm using that word right. I'm trying to sound like I know math. All right, so it's not too bad, at least around this line. If it's in I think it's in approximately the right place. So I believe I'm going to bring this side in just a touch further. I like put my pencil down, then my ruler against my pencil. There we go. Make a little bit of adjustment there. And now one of the tricky parts about this subject is how it's out of focus, or it's out of focus more at the bottom than the top. I took this picture, and I tried to take this picture with my camera on my phone, and struggled. It just wasn't working out. I couldn't get as big of a difference as I wanted from the top to the bottom with the phone's camera. So I switched to like a T7 Canon Rebel, something like that, T6 or T7. And I had a 50 millimeter lens on the camera, and still didn't look great. So I screwed a macro lens onto the 50 millimeter lens, and I got this picture, and I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay, we have another super chat. It's
All right.
Jan. He says, next week, Matt will draw a blue colored pencil and crayons. Symmetry. You heard it here again now, with a smiley face with a tongue sticking out emoji. So thanks for that, Jan.
That's great. Yeah, I told my students what I was doing, and they said, why don't you draw it with a crayon? And I don't think I've ever tried to make a fairly realistic drawing with a crayon. So that's a good idea. Might have to make it a lot bigger if I tried to use crayons.
And Terry is asking if you could give the colors that you're going to use again one more time, and maybe you can just name those colors when you use them.
That's what I'll do. That's what I'll do. But it's in the set. It's all of the oranges and reds, and that includes the Tuscan red, which is not as obviously red. But we'll look at those again. Okay, now for the cone, I feel like the left edge of the cone is almost vertical, because it's tilted. Of course, the cone is not, it doesn't have vertical sides, but the left edge is almost vertical. It only leans slightly towards the left from bottom to top, just slightly. So look for that. And then one of the reasons I wanted to draw this ellipse first is I feel like the small ellipse on top of the cone, were this circle to continue, and we drew it as a continuous circle, that this second ellipse would overlap it by a very small margin, like a Venn diagram. It's a tiny little circle, and it would, if it were clear, then the two ellipses would be like a really small Venn diagram. So the big circle, I don't think it's actually centered. No, it's pretty close. Let's work on it a little bit more. This through line, this gesture line is super important. All right. Then the opposite side of our cone just needs to be a mirror image as best we can make. We could measure from here to the center line, then pick a spot that's the same distance away.
All right, Harsma says,
target.
I can see how a 3-point perspective skyscraper would also be drawn this way via bird's eye view. Very useful gestural breakdown of a tough angle, Ashley. And Buddy says, thanks for telling us about the background of this photo.
Sure. I like to take my own photos when I can. Sometimes, of course, we don't have access to the things that we want to draw. But when we do, I think it's a fun part of the process. I like to photograph inanimate objects. All right. Feel pretty good about that. So we'll go ahead and get rid of the marks that helped us draw the marks that we need. And there's the curves, or I guess the
cross contour.
Yeah, the printed cross contour lines, and they're a little interesting because they're not, the edges of these lines are not parallel to one another. It's actually like a wavy ring that goes around these crayons. So I guess I can show it to you, right? See how they get wider and thinner. So we run the risk of drawing it right and it looking wrong, just because it's an unusual design feature. But we'll try to draw it the way we see it. So this is a little more space here between these two lines than on the other, the left side. And the opposite is true. On the left side, there's going to be a little more space over there. Now, I'm going to lighten this drawing greatly with the kneaded eraser before we bring in the color pencils. I don't like the way these intersect the edge of our cylinder. A little bit more smoothly tapered into the edge of the cylinder there. One more. All right. And then, the blurring effect is going to serve us well at the bottom because we can't really make out the word Crayola, so we don't have to write it. Just have an unusual shape. Again, sort of smoothly transitions into the edge of the contour of our object. All right. I'd like to spend 10 minutes looking at this, but we don't have time to to spare. So we'll go ahead and begin to lighten our drawing and make some adjustments to our shapes along the way as we see fit. So go ahead and use your kneaded eraser, if you have a kneaded eraser, and remove extra graphite and then a little extra still, because we don't want this graphite mixing in with our colored pencils at all. So we're gonna have to get pretty light. Looks like it's still showing up okay on the camera. Now, there's a couple ways to use colored pencils, and I usually like to build up the color in layers so that it's really solid, makes a smooth, completely covered waxy surface on the page from top to bottom, left to right. But we've got a white, I photographed this on a white background, and we're not going to cover the background. And then we also have that soft, blurry effect. So we may try to use the tooth of the paper and a less solid application, particularly as we work our way towards the edges, to soften those edges. But this drawing is very much about hard and soft edges. So I do want to try to capture that if I can. I'm really going to lighten this part up here.
Okay, we got a question.
Okay.
What pencil grade do you prefer for initial sketches?
I like HBs and 2Bs. That's kind of what I look for. HBs and 2Bs. And then usually switch to something like a 4 or 6B, or like an ebony pencil or General's layout pencil. Okay, I just went ahead and knocked the point off a little bit so it's not too sharp, and we don't get any too hard of a mark. And this is the orange pencil. Just wait a minute, I'm sorry. This is poppy red. I'll call out the names as we go. So the poppy red pencil, which is red orange. And I'm going to use this over a lot of the crayon. Not pressing down too hard because we're going to layer into this with other colors. It's an orange pencil, but it has a lot of red orange in it.
Terry, the color is poppy red.
Poppy red. And the number is PC922.
Oh, no, don't start doing that. We'll get all caught up with color numbers.
I know. Don't want to do that. All right, so we've gone around our cylinder's top so far. Of course, there's some light shadow on there. And I'm going to go ahead and, let's see, is this our Tuscan red? Go ahead and use our, lightly start with our Tuscan red. In the shadow.
All right, someone's pointing out that it looks like there are 2 more black lines at the bottom of the crayon.
Oh, are they? I don't see any black lines. I see some darkness.
Yeah, some darkness down
I see darkness. It all blurs together.
Darkness.
Yeah, and it will get dark down there. I don't think that it's so blurry and soft down there. I'm not going to draw hard edged lines because I feel like they kind of mush together, but they're there.
Now, are you going to use a colorless blender at some point?
You know what? I meant to ask you if you have a colorless blender.
Yeah, I'll grab one.
Because usually I throw one in the set. Take a pencil I don't need out.
Lord Engine says Prismacolor black is $9.35. It's the only one I know. It's also the one you should forget. I would not recommend using black with the Prismacolor Premier. Some of the other brands you can get away with using black to make the colors a little darker, but the black in the Prismacolor Premier line is very black and can make things look a little flat. So I would encourage you to mix darker values, maybe by mixing a dark umber or a ultramarine. Maybe not ultramarine. What's the color? Indigo blue. Indigo blue.
Oh yeah, it's very dark. I think I have that
dark
into my
umber.
set. Yeah, I've got the. It's called dark brown. the one that I have. And
There is a dark umber
is there?
too.
Is there? I'm going to use dark brown.
And if you mix the dark umber with a warm color, it'll create a darker version of that color. And if you mix the indigo blue with a cool color, it'll help to make a darker value of that color as well. But sometimes you have to mix the dark umber with the indigo blue to create a nice natural looking black.
All right, so now I have the crimson red, and I'm going around portions. We use the Tuscan red, and I'm using the crimson red around some of the cylinder top, what's not covered by the cone. There we go. And Spanish orange. I'm going to switch to Spanish orange now. And so far, all the color has been put down with relatively light to moderate pressure so we can get more colors on top. Thank you, Matt. I'm ready now. I've got some colorless blenders. Maybe there's a little lighter stripe right here.
Not much of the colorless blender, but they're over there.
Good thing it's a small drawing. All right, now we have orange, which is our color in question. Before I use any orange, though, I'm going to go back to my red pencil and get a little bit more red over the poppy red, which is more of a red orange, right here in the top ellipse. There we are. All right, now our orange pencil. Working into the Tuscan red now with the orange pencil some. Right up against its edge with a stroke of orange.
Now, this is just white drawing paper that you're working on, right?
That's right. Just regular white 80-pound drawing paper.
So nothing real special about the paper.
Mm-mm.
Someone asked about that.
All right, so all the white parts of the cone have a layer on them now. Working over top of the Spanish orange with the regular orange pencil. And this is the brown, the dark brown. So we're going to use a little bit of it now in the shadow, but not all the way to the edge, the shadow of the cone. Got 3 colors in that shadow now. A little bit of that in the shadow made by the cone, the top of the cylinder. And back to the red. More red coming out of that really dark shadow on the top of our cylinder. All right, now we do still have the poppy red and hanging on to it. Work it, more of it into the cone, deepen our orange.
All right, we've got an interesting question.
Very good.
Someone's asking, have you got any suggestions for inking and drawing with trimmers? I embrace the shake, but would like to get cleaner line work. It's a difficult one, right?
Let me think. Gosh.
I think with...
I mean, work larger to reduce the effect of the trimmers, maybe?
Okay, that's not a bad idea. I think, with an ink drawing, you can be super tight and clean, or you can be looser as well. And I think if you're dealing with trimmers, obviously you're going to have to embrace the looseness of the drawing, but you enhance your line. You're asking for cleaner line work. when you say cleaner line work, I guess you mean just having more control over the line, because even with trimmers, I would imagine that you would still be able to create expressive lines. And you can go back and make maybe some of those lines a little thicker and a little bit more thinner, or well, you can't make them thinner, but you can add thicker lines in areas, and that will expand the a variety of line that you have in the drawing and enhance the line quality in the piece. It may look like cleaner line work, but having a physical limitation, you do have to try to figure out a way to work around it. And I think about Chuck Close whenever someone comes to me about having some type of issue that might limit the way that they created artwork in the past. And for those of you who don't know, Chuck Close,
glad you brought him up. I think he's a perfect example here.
Yeah, he's a famous American artist who was creating highly photorealistic paintings before he ended up being partially paralyzed. And he was well known for his highly realistic paintings, but once he had the partial paralysis, he had to figure out a different way to make art. So he continued to make portraits, but he created, basically a grid over these portraits and then painted a variety of different colors that would optically mix to create the overall color or tone in that particular square. The best thing to do is to just look up Chuck Close, and you can find the artwork that he created before his disability and the artwork that he created after. And actually,
which is more interesting to look at.
It is. The artwork he created after his paralysis is what made him so famous.
The way he responded to that limitation is a stroke of genius unto itself.
Right. So, that might be encouraging to you. Sometimes you just have to find a different way or a different style. Now, there is a documentary on Chuck Close out there, and we used to show it to our students. We'd always have to fast forward to the part where he says a cuss word.
I always fast forwarded right on top of that part and hit play.
But it's really insightful on his process and how he had to, transform the way that he operates because of his issue. Again, his name is Chuck Close. So ChuckClose. And look him up, because it sounds like you're not in the same situation as him, obviously, but I think as artists, we have, when we encounter something like that, we have two options. One, we can quit, or we can adapt. And I think most of us would opt for the adapting. And that's exactly what Chuck Close did. So,
yeah, and he did work pretty large. Oh, no, he always had.
He always had worked large.
That wasn't a change.
But the working larger definitely, was to his benefit. Edie says Chuck's legs were paralyzed, though not his arms. He did not have the same control over the brush that he had before.
Yeah, he actually fastened them to his hands.
Right. He had to wore some like this kind of brace that would help him, and he actually would hold his hands together like he was steadying one hand when he painted.
So he kind of used, but he used both hands.
Yeah. So it's not just his legs. He had issues, physical issues that kept him from painting and working the way he did before.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of space to cover. We're 19 minutes.
You do. And that's the nature of colored pencils.
Yeah. But I think we'll be okay, because this is the part that needs to be in focus. It's in focus, and it is more variable because of the cone. Let's start working our way down.
And Harja says, another example, Matisse also switched to collage when his health didn't allow him for the hand coordination needed for a paintbrush. Yeah. Another good example. Thank you for that.
Renoir, I think, near the end of his life, would have his brushes tied to his hands because of maybe arthritis.
And this is the I don't remember the name of the person or the artist, but I do know I do remember hearing about an artist who became paralyzed after, I think, diving into a body of water that was too shallow.
Hit his head.
And I think it was a woman, and she became paralyzed, and she painted with a brush in her mouth. So there are ways to overcome. Another inspiring person to look up who doesn't have anything to do with art is Dave Dravecky, who was a Major League Baseball player. So he developed cancer in his arm, and part of his arm had to be removed.
Oh, wow.
An incredible story there. I read Dave Dravecky book when I was, I think, in middle school. So there are ways around it. It all depends on your motivation and how much grit you have.
Okay, so in the body of the crayon, we've just used orange, light layer of orange over the whole crayon's cylinder, and now the poppy red. And a very important color for us.
Harsha says, I think you might mean, I think it's Johnny Tada, or it might be Joni. It's Jonitada, and that name sounds familiar. It's been many years since I've heard that. And Lord Engine also points out that Def Leppard's drummer,
oh yeah,
was also in an accident and lost his arm and continued to play drums. So you have to adapt. You have to adapt. We got a question. Is it easier to do the blurry effect with wax-based pencils or oil-based pencils? And I'll go ahead and answer that question. It's going to be way easier with the wax, with the pencils that are more heavily wax-based, like the Premier colored pencils by Prismacolor. It's definitely going to be easier to create a blurrier effect. If you're talking about like an oil-based pencil, like the Polychromos pencils, those pencils are going to be a little bit more difficult to create the same effect, but you can still do it. But the wax pencils are going to, they're buttery, they're softer, they're going to be easier to blend with the colorless blender. So be easier with a softer pencil. The softer the pencil, the softer the material, the easier it is to create softer edges. That's kind of the rule across all the mediums. If you have a very soft oil pastel, you're going to be able to create smoother, softer edges than if you have a very hard oil pastel, for example.
Okay. Working with the Spanish orange now.
Okay, so another user has said that it's Johnny or Joni, Goni Erickson Tada, Tada, is the lady who is paralyzed at age 17 and paints with her mouth. So I knew I wasn't making that up.
Now we will use our dark brown in the shadow on the cylinder. Of course, the oranges on the cylinder, where the light hits the strongest, it's paper, so it's not the actual waxy crayon, and it's a little bit lighter. Important to note. And with this, while I have the dark brown, we'll go ahead and start our stripes. So we don't have a moment to waste. So if we can switch pencils less, that might help us.
Mary Elizabeth says, Matt, you did that when you had that year when you were in so much pain. It wasn't 1 year, it was several
right.
years. And I still struggle with it a little bit from time to time, especially when the stress level gets high, which it is right now. But I adapted a little bit, but I had to continue on doing things. It's not necessarily the same thing. I was super uncomfortable, but I still had to continue to produce content and run the website. So
the show must go on.
Exactly. There were many times when you guys were watching Getting Sketchy or live lessons or whatever, and I wasn't sure I was going to make it to the end of the broadcast. But those days are hopefully behind me. Things are better now, but it's still a struggle sometimes. All right, Buddy says, when planning smudging and blending, does the order of the color still play a role, like dark over light or light over dark?
Well, colored pencils, darker colors cover lighter colors better, but as long as there's tooth to be had, you can still work a light color into the darker color for a mixture. So I'm not necessarily, I guess I am kind of starting with lighter colors and working my way down now that you bring that to my attention.
Yeah, with colored pencils, you have a little bit of leeway on adjusting the value after you put it on the surface, even after blending it. You can always add light or a cream color or white or cream color. I think I said light. You can always go darker though. So just like with a graphite drawing, it's sometimes better to lean on the side of being a little bit lighter in the beginning, and then if you need to make things darker, you can make things darker. You just want to be careful that you don't get too much white or too much cream in the layering of the colored pencils, because then when you start to add darker values, sometimes it can lead to some grays and kind of dull the color a little bit. So if you're unsure about how things are going to look, you probably know what I'm going to say. Do a little test sheet of paper. It only takes a few minutes. So if you're unsure about the layering of the colors, do a little bit of a test and try different orders and things and see if what the final appearance is going to look like if you use the pencils in that way. I do this all the time. And sometimes if I'm working on a colored pencil drawing, it's a larger drawing, it's more complex, which is the case most of the time. And there's little sections that I need to address differently. I'll start in one area that's not necessarily near the focal point, and kind of come up with a way to kind of come up with a methodology. And then I just repeat that methodology. A good series to take a look at to kind of feel that out and see what I'm talking about is the colored pencils. What is it? A peony?
Oh yeah.
Peony with colored pencils. That's one of the class series. It's a pretty large colored pencil drawing that has a lot of detail, a lot of layering of pencils. And in that class series, I do a lot of experimentation to try to figure out what the layering of the pencils should be. So anyway, that's one of the classes that's part of the membership program.
So I've been going back and forth with dark brown and the indigo blue in the areas on the crayon that are black ink, or on the label at least. The whole crayon gets a little bit darker, even where the light hits as we move down the cylinder. We'll blend this part out in just a moment, see where we're at. Switch into the blender.
Okay, Janet asked, have
Working
you ever
list.
used Gamsol to blend colored pencils? And the answer is, have you, Ashley?
I don't feel like maybe I did in college.
Yeah, I've used solvents
have.
before to blend the colored pencils. So yeah, there are liquid options to blend the colored pencils. With the drawing Ashley's working on, you have to be careful when you start applying solvents to this type of paper, because it can, if you know, depending on the amount that you add, it can cause a little bit of buckling, and that material could bleed through the back of the paper. So if you are going to use a liquid solvent to blend the colored pencils, which you can, make sure that the paper you're working on can handle that type of application, like illustration board, heavier Bristol paper, watercolor paper. I'm thinking pastel paper. All of those are surfaces that were probably better suited to blending with solvent. There are also markers available out there for blending colored pencils as well.
Let's see, we've got 7.5 minutes. We're getting somewhere.
Okay, Buddy says Zest-It works great with oil-based colored pencils. I'm not really sure what Zest-It is, but it sounds zesty.
Sounds delicious.
Sounds a little bit like a spice, doesn't it?
A little bit of pencil in here.
Buddy asked markers for blending. And yeah, they do make kind of markers that can be used for blending colored pencils.
All right, now we do have, paper going around this top edge. It's visible.
For example, you can use, when you're working with alcohol-based markers, there are blending markers that are, included in a lot of the sets. You can buy them individually as well, but the alcohol in the blending marker will break down the colored pencil material a little bit and allow you to blend with them.
Do you end up with the pencils in your hand like this while you work? Just holding them all like Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, like a big backwards claw.
Yeah. That's what I got. Right. Let's see now.
Ashley is in thought with 4 minutes and 57 seconds left.
We ain't got time for that. What's that? Indigo. Here we go. All right, so the shadow on our surface is darker, closer to the object, of course, and it leans upward a little bit. And it's a little ambiguous, where the crayon starts and stops next to the shadow where they meet.
So you're starting with an indigo blue, or
starting with the indigo blue.
Now, if you're combining the indigo blue with the dark umber, you can control the color temperature of the shadow.
Yeah.
You can add more indigo blue to the color, and it will make a cooler shadow. Or if you want a warmer shadow or a warmer black, you can add more dark umber. So that's another advantage to combining the dark blue with the dark brown to create a more natural looking black instead of using black itself. I wish we could show you, but if Ashley
black is so powerful.
If Ashley put black on the shadow right now, it would completely destroy the drawing. Yeah. I know some of you are thinking that I'm crazy, but it's the truth.
Well, I haven't used it anywhere else, so it would be inharmonious for starters. Then it's just so hard to control. All right. Dark brown, which is already in the edge of the crayon's shadow. So this is where we'll kind of lose that edge where it starts and stops a little bit in there. Just a little bit. And maybe you'll take it out a little further. Almost can't touch the paper light enough. Just making a little circle stroke.
And now Ashley's making the small circular stroke to create a smoother transition between the color and the value. I like to call this circling.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you're moving your pencil in a circular motion, you're not making circles, but you are moving it in a circular motion.
Yeah, just trying to avoid distinct strokes there. A little bit of blending at the middle of that shadow. Of course, with the blender pencil, you don't have to bear down on it super hard all the time. You can blend really, really hard and solidly, or just a little bit, kind of like when you use a stump. Okay, let's see. Ooh, really low on time now.
Just 44 seconds left.
Let's see, where's my brown? Lost it. I've got all these pencils in my hand. There it is. Got to write Crayola really quickly.
Do you?
No. But it needed more darkness in the label. I don't know if we're gonna get any marks out of this. Oh,
yeah, I don't.
Ignore the
I
clock.
don't like those jelly
I know,
pens.
I don't either. And I tried this one before we went on, and it actually, there we go. It's starting to make a mark. I don't know if that's going to show up. I don't think it is. It just doesn't want to go over the wax.
Mary Elizabeth said the Jeopardy music is playing, and I said, "Oh no, have I pushed the wrong button?" But what she means is the time is almost up.
Time. All right, we'll just use the white pencil in a few places.
Now, if Ashley had more time and was finishing this as a colored pencil drawing, what he'd probably do is apply colored pencil to the white background.
Yeah.
And that would allow him to smudge the edges and blur the edges of the lower part of the crayon a lot more to create that blurred effect at the bottom. But doing it now against just the white of the paper with no colored pencil material is going to make the drawing kind of look messy and unfinished.
All right. Let's see. Do I need any little accents? I think I do.
Okay, we got a question. Is the gel roll white pen archival over the colored pencils? I don't,
Who knows?
I don't know why you would even worry about that at all. But I don't usually use the gel pens. I've got them and I've used them in a couple drawings and I don't like them. I think gouache is a much better option, or even a Posca marker if you don't want to use a brush and gouache. The problem with the Posca marker is that you know the tips, even the fine tip markers, are not that fine. They're still kind of blunt.
But
I
like them better though.
But with gouache, you can adjust the intensity of the color that you're adding. So, you know, not just white, you can add any color over the top of a colored pencil drawing, and you can adjust the opacity of that gouache to allow some of the color underneath to show through. Or if you want to use it completely opaque, you can do that as well with gouache. So, and you can use a really small brush with gouache as well. So you can have, you know, all the detail that you prefer, that you want. Even the gel pen is not consistent. It does not make a consistent mark on the surface, and it's still kind of blunt because it's kind of a rollerball end. So it's not necessarily a fine tip that hits the surface. Terry asked, what color would you suggest for the background? Well, you've got several options depending on what type of color scheme you want to go with. Real quickly here, if you want a complementary color scheme, then obviously the background would need to be a blue. It could be, you know, in this case, it could probably be a little bit of a darker blue, but you could use kind of more of a cerulean blue in the background with this to create some strong contrast. If you wanted to have an analogous color scheme, you could use a yellow or a red in the background. Just make sure that the value that you use is contrasting the crayon enough to do so. That would be analogous. It would also kind of be a warm color scheme. Or if you wanted to go with a secondary scheme, you could do that as well. You could put a purple or green in the background, probably. And you know, if you put a purple in the background, you probably want to look for an opportunity to add a little bit of green in there. But, you know, in Ashley's mixture around the lines of the crayon, it kind of has a greenish appearance. So a purple background would be nice as well. So you got options. And if you wanted a split complementary color scheme, you could go with kind of a blue background because there are some red oranges and yellow oranges in that crayon. You could also do monochromatic. You could do an orange in the background and just make sure that the orange that you choose is a contrasting value to the pencil.
All right. Well, I think that's about as far as we can take this one. We are out of time.
Okay, we got a crazy question here.
Okay. Oh,
off topic, but do any of you know of a glow in the dark medium to apply over alcohol markers and colored pencils? Do not. I don't know of any glow in the dark.
No.
Paint, and I
don't know much about
why you would want that.
I don't know much of that. That's outside of. I mean, I've used glow in the dark paint, but it didn't look. You know, it just looked like normal paint till you put a black light on it. I used it last year on Ursula's cauldron in the Little Mermaid play.
Right. Ashley has to do set design for his school's productions, which are pretty major. So he's well versed.
I mean, the photographs, which I also took, look fantastic. You know, once the black lights were all turned on.
Yeah.
It was pretty fantastic. But they didn't really look like, I mean, it just seemed like really thin paint, almost translucent. Now, that being said, you know, it was pretty translucent. So you might be able to thin a little bit of it out and then paint over the marker and see what happens.
Okay.
Right,
we got, looks really good, Ashley. Great job.
Thank you.
Harsha says, Ashley, the way he said Ursula's cauldron.
Yeah.
Um,
Ursula was
Hoot
my
Holler
favorite
says,
character.
well done, Ashley.
I kind of sympathize with Ursula.
Oh, the person with the glow in the dark is looking for something to make lawns in a roadway. Well, if it's a public roadway, be careful. All right. So great job, Ashley, on the orange.
Thank you.
Orange crayon. You picked the one
Orange.
color that I'm told I say incorrectly all the time.
Not
It's
intentional.
not orange.
You get a
it's
lot. You're going to get a
orange.
lot of practice over the
Orange.
next few weeks saying orange.
I like the
Orange.
shadow in the top there, and it continues all the way down the body of the crayon. And the fact that you made the top part crisper than the bottom part,
Yeah, I was
more developed.
trying to make that happen without cover, like you mentioned, covering the entire background so we could work colors into each other, which would be more ideal. But have to add a few hours to our clock.
Yep, for sure. All right. That'll wrap this one up.
All right, very good.
So we'll go ahead and switch over and say goodnight. So let's go ahead and switch over. All right there, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the last hour here as Ashley created his orange crayon with colored pencils. We will continue with Gettin Sketchy season 17 next week, right? You're still around next week, right?
That's right.
It's the next week after that.
Mhm.
Okay, we will have an interruption during the season where there will 1 week we'll not have a broadcast, but it's not next week.
No. We'll see
So
here.
I am curious to see what my theme is going to be moving forward. It's probably not going to be a theme. I'm probably just I kind of like not having a theme. I kind of like finding references, making references, and then creating drawings. So I'll be doing the drawing next week or painting. Haven't decided. Ooh, got to tune in to find out. And if you want to be notified, make sure that you join our newsletter list. Again, there's a link in the description below for that. Ashley, do you have anything else for the folks?
Colored pencils, I mean, I had about 4 square inches and it was a real hustle to get through that. They're just such a small, slow medium, but what a great medium. So I enjoyed drawing the orange crayon tonight with you guys. I hope you guys have a great week. And we'll tune in next week, you and I both, to see how Matt weaves together a new series.
There's no weaving. I've
got an idea.
The last drawing was the beginning and the end of the scary theme.
Okay.
People don't like scary stuff on this channel.
Do you ever play Connections?
No.
Oh my gosh.
But
It's such a great game.
It's a
like,
game.
There's Wordle, crossword puzzles. Connections is a New York Times game. And you're looking for connections in groups of words. And sometimes the words will connect, not because they're related to themselves, each other, but they relate to yet another thing or subject that is not part of the game. I'll explain it to you. Maybe we can make it happen.
I don't
It's great.
I don't think so.
I love puzzles.
I like puzzles, but I don't like word puzzles.
Well,
per se.
this wouldn't be, you wouldn't be making a word puzzle.
No.
But it's a way to create a thread through, the game uses threads that go through disassociated words, things.
Well, here's the theme. The same artist that did last week's video will do next week's
That's exactly
video.
what I'm talking
That's
about.
my theme.
Yeah, you are the theme.
I am the theme. All right. So anyway, we will see that next week. For those of you who are going to join us in just a minute, as I get my hands dirty with oil pastels, I will see you in just a minute. So will Ashley. So with that, we're going to go ahead and sign out for this evening. Don't forget to like if you like this video. Leave a comment. Tell us what background color you would like to see behind the crayon. And we'll see you next week. Good night, everybody.